All right, everybody, welcome back to the Modern Phoenix podcast. I have brought you a bit of a legend today. Katie Hendricks is here with us today to share a beautiful conversation. Katie, it is beyond an honor to be here across from you sharing this conversation. Thank you so much for your time and your work in the world.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. Being having this way of connecting with people when we're not in the same place has just been so exciting that we can have these
Mhm.
conversations and connect and share presence no matter where we are in the world. I just think it's one of the best things about technology.
Agree. Agree. And you are such a connector. Like the way that you show up in the world, I am really in love with your podcast.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
your podcast is so good. I literally listened to one of the episodes twice because I was like, the way that you speak about relationships, especially, is so refreshing. It's so grounded. It's so wise. And it's something that I really, really like respond very well to. I have to say, I think the first personal growth book I ever read was The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, your husband, which I'm pretty sure you were still influencing a lot of that work. Yes?
Oh, yes,
Yes, yes.
yes.
So it's wild. It's wild to me to be here with you 11 years later after reading that book and to have this conversation. Let me read your bio so that people can kind of come into our world and then let's dive in. Katie
Super.
Hendricks, best-selling author and international consultant, has been an evolutionary catalyst, contextual disruptor, and freelance mentor for over half a century. She's passionate about our ability to give and receive more nourishing attention and loving play in all aspects of our lives. Her purpose? I feel through to the heart with laser love and evoke essence through deep play. So beautiful. I love
Thank
it so
you.
much.
Oh, it took me several years to really land on, oh, this is what I do. Because, when you go
Mm.
to parties or,
Oh,
go to a
girl.
convention and people say, who are you? And then usually people say, I'm
Hmm.
a writer or I'm a coach, right? But I wanted to say, here's what I do in the world.
Hmm.
And I always get the, oh, how do you do? Oh, so it opens a conversation rather than putting me in a category.
Oh, that is so good to hear. I honestly truly struggle with this question depending on my environment. Like when I became certified as a life coach, I don't know, like 11 years ago. And it was so edgy for me to be I mean, just the fact, like the word life in front of it, like I'm going to coach you through life. It just felt so pretentious. And I would totally panic when somebody would ask me. And then the evolution of that it's been a lot. I've changed a lot over the last decade and added different modalities and passions to my portfolio, but still depending, like if the window guy who was here yesterday, by the way, and is like, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm like, "I help women untangle who they are from who the world told them to be." Yep, that's what I do, but I cannot land it.
It sounds like it's the train still kind of leaving the
It's still,
station a little
I
bit.
know that is what I do, but I still feel, I guess a part of me just feels really nervous about it.
Well, I love it that I have found if I move from a noun like I am a to a
Mm,
verb, that it
yeah.
makes a really big difference in how I experience myself, but also it creates a connection because if I'm saying, I facilitate or I assist or I guide or I consult with, those are rather than I am a, because it kind of fixes you. Whereas
Mhm.
verbs are just, my favorite. And I forget who it was who said, I think I am a verb.
I love that because literally, as you were saying the verbs, I was checking in with my body and I was like, oh, yes, there is a sense of like wonder and play about hearing the verbs versus I am, which is interesting and kind of kicks us off. And I think there's so many things that you are really like an expert on. And I know that helping, I mean, you literally said it in your bio, right? Like helping evoke the essence through the body, through play is a huge piece of that. But something in your bio when I read it about connecting with the heart, I thought that was really interesting. And I thought we might start there if that's
Sure,
okay with
sure.
you. So in my experience, I have some really brilliant friends, and one of my brilliant therapist friends said to me, several years ago, she said, my go-to when I am in a conversation with somebody and it's not going well and I'm struggling to explain myself. And I think this is like a universal experience, right? When words aren't really conveying the depth and the nuance of what we're trying to share, I
Yeah.
just close my eyes and I put my hand on my heart and I just say, I wish you could feel what's in my heart right now. Because
Mm.
in my heart, I feel fill in the blank. And even as I say that, it makes me emotional. And I know that for some people listening, they're just going to like roll their eyes and be like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And so I'm curious, for some people, the idea of going through the heart to communicate, they just can't comprehend it, maybe, and they can't access it and they can't feel it. And I'm so eager to hear how you would recommend somebody start, even in that situation. Like you're having a conversation with somebody and you're not connecting, you're not saying the right things, you're kind of moving into your default positions, whether it's like in a marriage or a friendship or whatever, and you want to do something that will cut right through and speak from the heart, but you have to first be able to access that in
Mm.
yourself.
I would say that's the main thing that people say, about themselves and their relationships is making the trip from head
Yes.
to heart and to body is like a canyon for most people. They don't really even know. I mean, I've had so many people say, I don't know what I'm feeling. And then the second thing is, I know what I'm feeling, but I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
So the sense that I have to do something about what's going on inside me rather than doing what I call presencing. I'd say
Mm.
the big move is including the rest of your body. And one of the questions that I ask people is when they're talking about an issue, I will ask, how are you experiencing that in your body right now?
Mm.
And even if they don't have an answer, they have to do something. They have to make that
Mm.
trip
Yeah.
and inquire. And to me, that's the move. And for
Mm.
most people, that move needs to be made lots and lots of times because it's like wagon wheel ruts now. There's no road.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get curious, and I find what was just coming to me is that the sound hmm, which you hear children saying all the time. If
Yeah.
you go like, what are you doing out there? You know,
Yeah.
the moves us from our critical brain
Mm.
into our wonder brain.
Oh my God, I just did it. I went, hmm.
Exactly. See? So, and if
Yes.
we, and what it does is it opens the highway of
Mm-hmm.
this network, your throat, and your ability to say what's so, your ability to breathe connects your head to the rest of your body. And when you, it relaxes your throat. So you're not gripping, trying to say the right thing or afraid you can't think. And it actually
Mm-hmm.
allows you to think better. So that's one thing I suggest to people is, And the other is take a couple of slower breaths
Mm-hmm.
because when that will move you out of your fight, flight, freeze, faint, fear state into
Mm-hmm.
presence. And then the first thing that I like to have people share is something that they appreciate about themselves. So, or I'll say, I appreciate the quality of your voice. When I hear it, I find myself relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm sharing an appreciation, my experience is that that opens up that space of being able to be with ourselves more fully. Because most people right now live from the head up.
Yes.
They really live from the neck up and they're, in their phones all the time and also thinking about life rather than experiencing life. And
Yes.
when people are doing that, also, they're not moving. So, you'll go through, where people used to be like, if you're you're in the airport or you're in the store, kids were, usually running around you. But if
Mm.
you're on your phone, you're decreasing your vocabulary because we learn first through movement. So when kids are little, that's really how they encounter things. Babies put things in their mouths and
Mm-hmm.
and toddlers will go and dive into something. But when we get older, we think that we're supposed to be somehow like more, Victorian or something. We're supposed to be
Hmm.
proper, and not have that kind of playfulness and spontaneity. So I ask people to just, do something like shrug their shoulders, or feel their feet so that they come into a direct experience of their body. So for most people, opening their heart is actually pretty scary because many people have been wounded by opening their heart and letting somebody in. And so going directly for the heart, I find is a little threatening for people. So
Yeah.
what I do is I sort of move around the heart by opening breath and by opening movement, and then by appreciating is such a great avenue for people to get to loving themselves, because most people won't start with I'm willing to love myself. But if I can move from one criticism to an appreciation, like what are you noticing about yourself right now that you really like? And people will struggle with that. Well, no, there really isn't anything. And, and so then I can explore with them, well, when you look at yourself that way or you experience yourself that way, what happens to you? And most people will, if I say, like, I notice that you sort of roll your shoulders and it looks
Hmm.
like you're kind of sitting, on
Hmm.
yourself, you sort of collapsed your chest. So what
Hmm.
would happen if you sort of let your chest peek out a little bit, and then you can go back in again, but you
Yeah.
let your chest peek out a little bit. And so I meet people, I do my best to meet people where they are, and then I'm letting them know that I'm present with them however they are. And then that gives them that sense of, oh, however I am is welcome. I
Yeah.
don't have to be on my best behavior, I don't have to be, in what we call a persona. I don't have to look good, or,
Hmm.
be the good student, or be pleasant. That's kind of what I grew up in. I grew up in the 50s in the Midwest. Although I'm a
Hmm.
native Californian, but I did a lot of my growing up there in the Midwest, and the ethic really was, it's better to look good. It's
Yeah.
better to be nice. If you can't say anything nice, you basically just don't say anything. And kids
Hmm.
are supposed to be well behaved, and all of these things of suppressing your spontaneity, in service of not getting into trouble. And
Yeah.
so letting people know however you are, you're welcome. And then,
Hmm.
I may include some way in which I had felt awkward about what they're expressing, so that I'm doing my best to meet them and let them know that we're traveling along together.
Thank you for that beautiful answer. It felt like I was hearing somebody describe focalizing, which is the modality that I am trained in, and that is body based. It's all
Mm-hmm.
about the body. And this journey that we take people on is so similar to what you just described. It is wild. Even as much as like understanding that when you open that channel from the head to the body, it might be too much. It might actually be really scary or uncomfortable, and overwhelming. And so, okay, let's just what's our toes doing? Like, oh, let's just move around a
Yeah.
little. And however you are is perfectly okay. I mean, I wasn't conscious of this constant criticism running in the background of my mind. I really thought I had managed it. And I mean, I guess whatever, you're always working on things. And so I think I had, when I went through my focalizing program, I suddenly, and they say it so many times, it's just like no shame, no blame, no expectation, no pressure, show up. Like, how are you arriving? However you are is fine. And also understanding I get to receive that when I'm, in my program, but that's what we're giving to other people
Right.
as facilitators and coaches. And the impact of that I really cannot overstate enough. And sometimes it doesn't feel like I'm doing enough as a person, even to just say it, because it almost feels like so cheesy or so cliche. And yet I know that just giving someone permission to be how they are, even in like the anxious state they're in, or to not access the heart if it feels like too much, I feel like that's a big deal.
It is really a big deal because we have a sort of an automated, sense of how you're supposed to go through life.
Hmm.
When you're a kid, you can be spontaneous, and when you get older, you're supposed to be more
Yeah. The
organized.
rules.
The rules, and
Yes.
all of those rules is what I call exogenous world, which is caused
Oh.
from without. and we get caused on,
Mm.
basically from moment one, but especially
Yeah.
in school, about you're supposed to behave this way and not this way. And for me, I had an incredible breakthrough when I was in the fourth grade, and in that dynamic, because we were all supposed to sit. When I was little, I could move around, and I didn't know yet that I'm a kinesthetic learner. And so
Mm.
when I first got into school, I was absolutely miserable because we had to sit and try to learn something. I'm also a lefty, and
The desks.
the desks and the pens and the scissors, and they're all, so it was all very just painful for me. But I had a teacher in fourth grade, Mrs. Morgan, who said, "Hey, listen, I know," she noticed I was a squirmer. I would have been diagnosed, but she said, "Hey, why don't you sit in the back of the room and you can move as much as you want to?"
Mm.
And I literally changed my life overnight because
Mm.
I could move. And when I moved, I went from a C student to an A student overnight, and got engaged in school and became, and really an avenue to keep exploring. So what I'm interested in is, how is it that people give attention to themselves? Because most of the way that we give attention to ourselves is critical. That's what
Yeah.
we're taught. That was the water that I swam in as a child. Everything was very
Mm.
critical. And so I learned to look at myself that way
Yeah.
and to experience myself that way. And so when you're with someone whose presence lets you know that however you are is
Mhm.
just fine and I can be
Mhm.
with you, I mean, that is probably, I think, the biggest gift that we can give to anybody, is that I'm with you. And I like to use the imagery of being together with a friend on a porch swing that
Mhm.
has just the right rhythm, that we're just being together and we're rocking, because that
Mhm.
also slows down all of the anxious stuff inside. And that sense of being together, I find, is profoundly relaxing for your nervous system, so that who you are, what I call your essence, can actually begin to emerge. But
Mm.
I've had people invent, how is it that you like to retreat when it's just too much? So I've had people make forts, or have a
Mhm.
place that they can go to where it has all of the qualities that allows them to feel safe. And that,
Mhm.
I think, has really made a huge difference for people, because there's also this: you should not be feeling the way you are.
Yeah.
You should be
Right.
able to just
Yeah. You
flip
haven't
a
done that
switch.
much, or you
Yeah,
haven't. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh.
A lot of my clients were told that they were either too much, they were too something, but I was told I was too sensitive. And I
Mhm.
realize now that that's my superpower.
Are we the
Because
same person? I just keep raising my hand over here.
yes, and then we can find that, see, your sensitivity, my sensitivity, is what allow us to find those little windows in where
Mhm.
people are sort of closed off. But because it's sort of like water trickling through cracks,
Mhm.
that sense of presence creates a
Mhm.
flow where people can be safe and
Yeah.
actually have an experience of being safe, not to be told, like people say, "Oh, there's nothing to be scared about, just
Mhm.
knock it off." Just
Mhm.
and you cannot argue when your body is not safe, you're going to
Mhm.
protect. And if
Mhm.
you have somebody with you that's, breathing and presencing, you can feel that directly, and it starts to thaw out, the ice,
Mhm.
and then it becomes water and flow. And then they can access more of their own life energy, rather than having to get it from adrenaline, having to get it from, keeping
Mhm.
things all charged up and trying to achieve and trying to get to the next thing, rather than my being is enough.
Mhm.
We don't hear that.
Mm-mm.
Like, what have you
Mm-mm.
achieved now? And when are you going to get to
Right.
the next
Exactly.
goal? And I work with a lot of people who have gotten to that goal,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
realize, nope,
It'll
that's
never
really,
be enough.
no, it'll never be enough. And it is a kind of emptiness too, because there's no nourishment in that
Yeah.
kind of achievement, because it's based on adrenaline. Whereas presence is really based on the presencing hormones, the oxytocin, and all of the hormones that allow you to connect and allow you to bond and allow you to feel loved and feel affection. And so I think that our presencing with each other is something I practice that I call loop of awareness, which is basically being able to shift my attention. And that's one of the first things that I teach people, because you can do it not only with other folks, but inside yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
giving curious attention to,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, what's going on? I feel this little something going on in my back. And so rather
Mm-hmm.
than going, what's wrong now? If I
Yeah.
get curious and I'm giving my presence to it, it literally starts to move and starts to open up. And so you are reclaiming your ability to be with yourself. And to me, that is, I think, one of the most valuable tools and practices that we can all have. And then if I'm able to give attention to you, like suppose we were getting into a hassle with each other,
Okay.
and we'll just
Gosh,
pretend
I hope not.
both of us would tend to get more frozen or more in fear. But if I'm able to circulate my attention, like I'm able to notice you and like what's happening in your head is nodding, and then I give attention to me and I go, oh, and now my head is nodding. Basically, I'm circulating. And we really know that circulation is the most important aspect of our being in our bodies and our being in relationship. That when we can circulate attention, I can go, oh, something's going on over there. Where if I'm caught in myself, I didn't know, oh, something's going on. And how can I be with that? But if I'm not being with me, then I can tend to
Mm-hmm.
drain all of myself into you. And then I don't
Yes.
have anything for me. So learning how to shift your attention in what I call loop of awareness has been incredibly valuable for me, and and for my students and coaches, because they create presence wherever they go, and they don't lose themselves. So when I am teaching a training, I've been known to go for 10 days straight, teaching a training, and at the end people say, you look more vital than you did when we started. And that is because primarily of this practice,
Yeah.
because it's an attention pump. I'm filling my own
Totally.
reservoir, and then I can give from fullness rather than giving from lack. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
so cool, and it's very, very easy. And I have a whole section on the Foundation for Conscious Living website
Mm-hmm.
where I explain how to do this. And I've got many videos about the different qualities of loop of awareness. So that's something I really recommend to anybody, because
Mm-hmm.
whatever your profession is and whatever your relationship status, if you learn how to give yourself attention,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that happens is it wakes up what we call the witness, so
Mm.
that I'm able to, rather than being inside of the experience, like I feel hurt or angry or I'm scared about something, I have a witness that can say, like, oh honey, oh, you're feeling anxious right now. Oh, let's just be with that for a minute. And very often that's all that's needed, is just an acknowledgement and a breath, like, oh
Mm.
yeah, I was feeling, and then sort of telling the truth about it. So if I'm
Yeah.
trying to hide it or pretend that I'm fine, when people say,
Mm-hmm.
several
Mm-hmm.
years ago, I fell off my bike and my bike fell on me and snapped my hip and I broke my hip. And within 5 minutes, there were fire trucks and ambulances and police and 100 people. And so the first thing they said is, how are you all right? And I said, I'm fine. Just
Mm.
the automatic, I'm fine. And then I couldn't stand up. And that's a reflex, because I've been practicing for years and years and years. So the first thing came out, I'm not going to be any trouble. I don't need anything.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. Don't mind me. Just a broken hip.
Right, right. It's just a
Yeah.
broken hip, nothing to
I'll
worry
see myself out. Don't
about.
worry. Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, so much goodness there. Where to begin? Well, first of all, I have to tell you, my friend Edie Allen is a what's it called, like a big leap facilitator.
Oh
She
yeah,
did
she's a big
she
leap
did your
coach.
training, yours and Kay's, and she was a guest teacher at my retreat a year ago, and she did the loop of awareness exercise with everybody.
Yay.
She did that and essence pacing, which maybe we'll have time to get into. I don't know. It's so good, but I am blown away by how approachable these things are, the way that you speak about them. I'm like, oh, I could learn so much from you, because what you're saying with this loop of awareness is what I am always also trying to say, but I like loop of awareness better, because what I'm teaching right now, I'm running a program called the Inner Knowing mastermind.
Mm.
And what I am sure of is like, unless you are checking in with yourself and how you're feeling constantly, you will end up depleted, and you will end up like, you'll give yes when you mean no. You'll say I'm fine when you have a broken hip. Like you will just not have any clue of your capacity. And when it comes to like teaching, like you were saying, it's like, I just did an in-person retreat and I noticed by the end I felt great. I felt so nourished because I was constantly checking in and going, how am I? What's going on with me? And what's the resource that's needed? And so in my world, we call it resourcing. And it can feel a little bit too cognitive almost,
Yes.
right? And so people are like, what's the right resource that I need versus this constant, like you called it, a motor or like a pump, right? That's
Yes.
constantly going, which is how I experience it, by the way,
Hmm.
of constantly, I'll be like doing, or like a work day. A work day is a good example, though. I think I'm the worst at this at work, where I'm just constantly checking in with myself and going like, oh, I need to pee. Oh, I need a drink. Oh, I need to go for a walk outside. Oh, I need to put my phone away. Oh, I'm actually moving so fast. I need to slow down. But then the awareness goes back out and I go back to what I was doing. So I think people have this idea that, embodiment or self-nourishing is like this thing that you time block and you just schedule it out and then you're good.
Yeah,
And
I'm
it's
good. Yeah.
so toxic. It is really blowing my mind. It's like this self-care model that is, it's not nourishing, it's not embodied, it's not helpful, because what we need is literally to get out of this idea that we're just brains that are computers walking around, and we need to get into this rhythm, this constant rhythm of like, my awareness goes into me and then into you and then into me and then into you. I mean, I have three little kids right now. They're not that little. They're 11, 8, and 5. And I am noticing in this season of my life compared to the beginning, if I had known anything about loop of awareness, embodiment, resourcing, I could have had such a different experience because I was just constantly working on adrenaline and coffee and wine and just going like
Yeah.
100 times speed to just do everything I could do before. And then like, oh, I'll just get a massage, or like I'll take a little nap and that will make up for 10 days of whatever that was, which is just crazy. Versus now I find myself as I'm making the dinner, I'm checking in and I'm taking breaks all throughout my day as I'm with my kids. I'm noticing what's my experience and what's their experience. It's not either or, it's both at the same time, which I think is absolutely impossible for most modern humans to conceptualize because we are so trapped in, this binary thinking. And even to
Yes.
what you said about criticism, it's like as soon as you move from criticism into appreciation, your brain kind of melts and you're like, wait a minute, it's really stuck there. Right. And so the way that you speak about presence as the pathway to pull you out of this overgiving, overdoing, moving too fast, totally depleted, default responses like I'm fine, it's fine, whatever. Yes, yes, yes. Into, oh, I'm noticed. Oh, I feel a little, yeah, I'm actually kind of tired. Oh, I feel anxious. And then back to the world, and then back to me, and then back to the world. So it's such a beautiful framework. I can't thank you enough for it.
Oh, well, yeah, thank you. I find it so simple. And the basic move is to shift. So what I invite people to do, well, first of all, to if you'd be willing to add the
Oh,
so
right.
if you add the
Mm.
even if you're just doing it quietly inside, or if you're by yourself out loud, that gives you curiosity rather than criticism. So if you add that to your shift, and what I invite people to do is notice where your attention is. It's like belly buttons. Are you more of an innie or are you more of an outie? Most people are outies. And so when you notice your attention, just simply shift it the other direction. That's it. Just
Mm.
shift it. And so that's the basic skill. And then there are all kinds of wonderful questions like, what's your rhythm of your attention? So like, do you go out, 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 and then a little bit in and then out, out, out?
Yes.
Is it very fast, or do you have
Mhm.
a difference of pace? What kind of difference does that make to the quality of your attention? But truly, we are attention animals. We require
Mhm.
attention. People don't realize this because we're so educated that we're not supposed to need it anymore.
Mm.
especially as adults. But people require attention lifelong, just as much as food and water. You would never consider going out into the world without your water and without, a protein bar in your pocket, your nourishment. But we don't give ourselves that the lusciousness of attention. I have so many experiences of when someone looks at you and with regard, when they look at you valuing you, you
Hmm.
experience that. I
Yeah.
experience that. If I'm looking around and I can see the people who, when they look at me, there's appreciation there. They're open, they're not closed up and, looking at,
Hmm.
critical or competitive. And that's nourishment. We
Hmm.
get nourishment from the way that we're attended to, as infants. And then,
Right.
as we go along through life, we're say that we're not supposed to need that anymore. But one thing I want people to really get is that you require attention. It's a good thing. It's your most basic nourishment. And the more you
Hmm.
give it to yourself, the more you are able to give to others. Because when you're
Hmm.
in adrenaline, the attention you give to other people is not nourishing. It
Yes.
just keeps the fear cycle going because
Yes.
adrenaline and fear are very close cousins. And
Mm.
adrenaline is a non renewable resource.
Mm.
It's really a poison.
Yeah.
And when we shift from adrenaline, into what we call essence pace and into presence, then your attention becomes nourishing for you and for others. And it's often all that's needed. And so in relationship, one of the things I was thinking about is that people talk about communication in relationship and how difficult it is. Well, it's only difficult when you're coming from your persona, like your fixer,
Hmm.
or devoted or the criticizer. But when you're giving attention with curiosity, that is so incredibly nourishing, not only to you, but also to your relationship, because your partner or your friend or your colleague feels safe in your presence. And then
Mm.
they'll open up to more spontaneity, more play with you, more creativity. That's where co creativity comes from, rather than power struggles and competition, is from
Hmm.
here we are together. And I'm feeling the way I am, and you're feeling the way you are. And what can we create together?
Mm. Well, it makes me think of the porch swing again. When you said the thing about, oh, you're just with a friend and you're swinging on this porch swing, of course, it gave me almost a sense in my body of what that would be
Yes, that's
like.
what, yeah. And I think metaphors are so valuable that way
Hmm.
because they also give us access to
Hmm.
our interior landscape.
Hmm.
Rather than if we're using like you should, and all you need to do
Right.
is to move your hand 5 minutes,
Hmm.
5 degrees to the right,
Right.
that doesn't have any juiciness to it. But when you use
Yes.
metaphors, those really give people access to their inner life.
So, where I'd like to go next is relationships. I mean, you and Gay have been married for how long?
We've been together 45 years and we've been married 43.
That's it. Jeez. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So obviously you both have figured some things out. And I'm thinking about what you're sharing about presence and what opens up when you give your attention to yourself and to another. And I also it makes me think about what gets in the way.
Mm,
And I think I have a lot of conversations all day long with women who feel like, "Oh yeah, I would like to do that," or "I would like my husband to do that, or I would like my friend that I feel disconnected from to do that, but this thing is in the way." And what to do when you're two people who love each other? I mean, I'll just think about myself and my husband, right? Like we love each other so much. And when we are having a moment where we're unable to connect, something happens where it's like maybe when we tap into what's in our hearts. I think for him, sometimes, as somebody who goes into his body less and gives his body attention less,
yeah.
it just feels like that is so foreign to me. I cannot be there with you. And I mean, we have worked through this, so it's not the best example because I really talk to women all day long who can't even get there. Like their husband or them, they just feel like they touch it for a minute, their presence or like their attention goes inward, and it's so uncomfortable because understandably often there's decades of neglect and pain
Yeah.
and exhaustion and grief or whatever. It just feels too dangerous. So then you
Yeah.
never can have that porch swing moment.
Yeah.
And then their question is often like, well, I'll go first. Fine. I'll go first. I'll try. But what if the other person, it's just too foreign for them to do that, to meet them on the porch swing?
Yes, I totally understand. By the way, I wanted to mention that my porch swing is this lovely shade of blue.
Of course.
So when you're doing the porch swing, to invite people to get the qualities, does it creak and does it, what kind, does it have chains or so you can have a whole body experience of it. What just occurred to me is that I've developed hundreds of processes over the years. And in our latest relationship book, Conscious Loving Ever After, we have lots of different processes for people, but the one I think would be ideal for couples who are, they haven't quite gotten the connection, or they've lost it in the midst of all of this stuff that goes on in life. We have two conversations we call the stuff talk and the heart talk. So they're two 10-minute conversations that we describe to people how to go through it. And what it does is give you a structure of connection. And it
Mm-hmm.
also allows you to do one of the biggest sorts that I think gets in the way of heartfelt communication with couples, and that is the business of life and then your
Mm.
relationship. And those two things get
Hmm.
mushed up for people. In fact, our greatest example of that was a husband who came back from a business trip of several days, and his wife opens the door and says, "Thank God you're home. The upstairs toilet is broken again." So the very first thing that she meets him with is the business of life.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is one of the main things that blocks the heart communication. And
Mm.
so one of the things that I learned, because we practiced this before we shared it with other people, was writing down the business items. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, who's going to take, the kids to the, and back to school stuff and all that. So you write down the business and then you say, oh, it's time for a business meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found is that by using the structure that we've developed in our stuff talk and heart
Mm-hmm.
talk, you can get through the business in 10 minutes.
Oh
Now,
my God.
if anybody knew that you would only needed to take 10 minutes, not all day, you don't have to have a fight about it. You don't have to say, oh, do we have to do this again? And then when you're communicating with each other, it's
Mm-hmm.
not about business. It's really about
Yeah.
what you're experiencing, what you're learning. Like, I'll show a cartoon today that I saw that I thought was just hilarious. We share reels of cats with each other. That's one of the things we do from Instagram. But the heart talk also gives people a structure for connecting. So it
Mm-hmm.
gives you a very simple, like, breathing together for a moment, and then it will give you a structure for saying something about what you're experiencing. And so I
Mm-hmm.
find that structure creates a kind of safety for people, that it's not going to go off into something that we're not going to be able to lasso. So
Yeah.
that's one thing that I would really recommend for folks. But at the very basic is, most people and society in general sees a relationship as, you got a fixer upper. Your partner is an
Mm.
improvement project. Like,
Yes.
he's a little rough around the edge, usually directed at women, like, listen, I know he's a little raw, but if
Mm-hmm.
you just keep working on him over the years,
Oh
you'll
my
get him.
God.
So that whole, which I think is very dismissive and a little bit contemptuous, but if you see your partner as an evolving work of art,
Mm.
that's the switch that I assist people to make in our in-person couples courses. To look at the different ways that you see your partner as an improvement project, and
Mm-hmm.
then literally letting go of that. And we have a whole body thing that we do to have people let go
Mm-hmm.
of that. And would you be willing to commit to see your partner as an evolving work of art? And so your job is to appreciate. And the big move that made the most difference for us was when we would catch ourselves criticizing,
Yeah.
that we would move immediately to appreciating.
Mm.
And, the research is pretty clear, that you need at least 5 appreciations for every one criticism to keep a balance in your
Hmm.
relationship. It's not a one-to-one like, ew, you look awful today, but oh, that was a good dinner.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah.
work. So we decided, years ago to create a no blame relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
I really recommend it. That most people are afraid to open up because they think they're going to be blamed, and they do get blamed. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're willing to shift from blame to appreciating, that's the miracle move.
It's such good advice. And I had a client who was sharing how her husband is feeling, I guess, resentment, maybe disappointment because she's not keeping up with the dishes.
Oh,
And
that's a
and
classic.
I said to her, it sounds so silly. It's like both silly and also like infuriating, and I said, it's never about the dishes. It's never about what we think it is. But also I'm just hearing from your idea of like the business meeting and the or us meeting or the stuff meeting. It's like how much in partnership, especially in marriage, gets really muddy because suddenly the dishes is us. But it's like, who cares about the dishes? Like, where
Right,
are we? Are we connected heart to heart?
right.
And then suddenly the dishes don't matter as much. Or if they do, we can have a business meeting about that. But
Yes,
kind of sorting through it so you
yes.
can see
That's
like what's ours and like what's our businesses.
right. And so that's why if you use this structure of the heart talk and the stuff talk, that structure, along with your calendar, because you put it on your calendar.
Hmm.
So, like, oh, not right this minute. Like, oh, it seems like we need a business meeting. Okay,
Yeah.
how about tomorrow?
Yeah.
After you get home from work and you've had a half an hour to yourself or what,
Hmm.
so, and then you negotiate that and you put it on the calendar. And then there's something that's so relieving to your insides when you do that. Because,
Right.
like,
Your system.
okay, we're
Yeah.
going to handle this. I don't have to
Yeah.
carry it in my head. I've
Hmm.
put it on paper. We're going to handle it. And
Hmm.
my experience is that it takes a couple of months to get the rhythms, to actually,
Hmm.
have it be working smoothly for you. But the investment is so worth it. For me, I would know that whenever Gay would say something like, "Hey, I noticed," it wasn't about something wrong. It was really about, so like, I noticed that there were a lot of hummingbirds out in front today,
Mm.
which is, I'm really happy to hear that, rather than I noticed that you didn't move your socks again, or I
Hmm.
noticed that there are coffee grounds again. It opens up the receptivity to connecting. And I find that just so important. The other thing that I've used, it's sort of first aid, is that when you're gritchy with each other, and we also know exactly the words to trigger the
Hmm.
other, we know what gets them. And,
Hmm.
and so if you're, feeling in that kind of attack mode, move, or sort of under the surface kind of attack, our words can be very triggering. And so when people are in that, I ask them to drop the words out
Mm.
and just use sounds and gestures with each
Mm.
other. And very often it very quickly gets into funny. So if you're going, and then the other responds. And then the other thing I have people do, like if you put your hands up, so, and I put my hands on yours and we just go, na, 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 then, that's what all power struggles are, a na, na, na. And so
Yes.
if you just drop out and you go, na, 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 and you
Lighten
celebrate,
up.
you lighten up and the
Yes.
adrenaline melts away and you go, oh yeah, you recognize, oh, okay, here we're partners. And
Oh.
love can then flow again rather than being all, pointy and
Yes. Yes. Kind of looping it back to it's like you don't get married so that you will always have a clean sink.
right.
You know what I mean? And I
Sure.
think so much of the stuff of life, it just gets in the way of the romance and the joy and the playfulness between
Yes, and the
lovers
fun that
and
you can create, but
yeah, the
also
fun.
the co-creativity. So
Hmm.
I think what our future is, our human future is about co-creating.
Yeah.
It's really about collaborating and about the two of us or the several of us creating a we space.
Hmm.
And it's really palpable that, and where you most see it now is on a really good sports team.
Hmm.
Like we're baseball fans. My husband grew up with baseball, so,
Hmm.
and I got introduced to it through him. And so last year the Dodgers had an incredible year, and one of the things that I notice is that they're a team.
Yeah.
And what that is they're thinking together. They're like an
Hmm.
organism,
Hmm.
that where each of them is an expression of the whole organism. And
Hmm.
when we are doing loop of awareness and we're appreciating and valuing each other and ourselves, what tends to grow then is this something between us that has its own life. The
Hmm.
we that, new ideas and new creations and new connections come out of that that are not possible by us individually.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and also what it's making me think about is like how much resentments we carry over and hold on to with the narratives we have and the stories we have about the people that we love. We love them, but we're resenting them for this really good reason. We're
Yeah,
criticizing them for this really good reason.
yeah,
And what I find with embodiment, which is everything that you're speaking to, is like you may have a really good reason. Sure, fine. But if you want to be on a team that thrives on criticism and blame and articulation of just how right you are, I don't think you're actually going to be happy with that in the end versus when you can be open to putting that attention, all that attention and criticism out into like, let me just try. I wonder if I
mhm,
shift to appreciation, what happens? I wonder if I, like put attention on myself. Oh, actually, I feel really uncomfortable with the dishes in the sink. That's a me experience. What is that like for me? Okay, can I give that my attention instead
yeah,
of thinking they need to give it to me or they need to fix it or it's their fault? Like, can I just be with that and what we know about, dropping into the body, like you so beautifully articulated, is sometimes it just moves itself. As soon as you just gift it your attention,
right.
it moves into
Yeah, because
something unexpected. Like you never know.
we think of our bodies as being less than, but what all of that about is fear.
Yeah.
So the whole other aspect of my work that I've been focusing on for 10 years is how people can actually befriend fear, then utilize the energy that's caught up in, like telephone pole lines that are and they're not
Hmm.
connected. When you connect them up and befriend your fear, all of that juiciness that you had been putting into fleeing or into fighting or into
Yeah.
freezing or into fainting becomes accessible to you. So the other thing that I teach people is when in doubt, it's probably fear. When in
Hmm.
doubt, do fear melters. And, we have
Hmm.
those on our foundation website, but even just acknowledging, oh, I feel scared.
Yeah.
Not I feel scared because what you did, but
Yeah.
oh, I feel scared right now. That's also a shift move. And I'm just giving
Mm.
attention to, oh, yeah, I felt scared. And then it begins to shift because
Mm.
your intelligence is even more powerful in your body than it is in your head body. And your head body can only use the juice that comes up from your body.
Yeah.
So otherwise you're going to just be grinding away on the old patterns and the things that you learned and have been going around
Mm.
like this for centuries.
Yeah. Ugh. Thank you so much for all of this amazing wisdom and advice. And we're going to link to all of your books and your website and your materials in the show notes. But I just am so grateful for this conversation and all the ways that everything's looped back to, speaking from the heart, connecting to the heart. And sometimes there's fear in the heart and presencing the heart and presencing that fear and giving yourself attention,
Mhm.
honoring the intelligence of your body as the way through to the connection and the love and the heart opening expansion that you desire in your relationships, in your life, in every area. I just think it's been really, really wonderful. Yeah, I
Thank
can't
you.
thank you
Thank you.
enough.
What a pleasure to be with you and to co-create.
Yes, I just want to take a moment and acknowledge you. Yeah, the little one in me is grateful for this like mother energy that you carry that's just very nurturing and loving and grounded and wise. So thank you so much
Mm.
for your presence today.
Oh, you're so welcome.
I personally soaked it up. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, and then tell everybody how they can find you, keep in touch with you.
Oh, right. Yes. Well, we have two websites. We have hendricks.com, and that's where you can find information about our seminars, our coaching program, and some relationship stuff. And we have our nonprofit websites called foundationforconsciousliving.org. And we have dozens of free videos there on essence pace, on breathing, on what we call sorting the two files, and all kinds of skills that can actually move you more into enjoying life as a creative person and just meeting the unknown with resourcefulness. We have something called restoring resourcefulness. We have a whole
Mm,
program is called coming home to yourself, restoring resourcefulness, and creating caring community, and that's on the foundation website. So everything that we've learned over the years, our job has been to give it away, to empower people to find their pathways to express what we call your genius in the world. And I'm so delighted that you're expressing your genius in the world. And one of the other ways that I celebrate with people is on the podcast that I do with my partner, Sophie Sheesh, that's called Be, Play, Love. And it's really all about the kinds of things that we were talking about today.
It's so good. So cute. Your relationship with her is it's really lovely to listen to. So, all right, we will link all that in the show notes.
Wonderful.
Thank you again, Katie. I will
Thank
be
you so much.
hopefully at a seminar soon.